When the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show, the best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go. It's the best soccer show. Jason Davis, Jay Rodius, Jared Dubois. We are live. We are loud. We are CONCACAF for life, baby.
Ooh,
CONCACAF for life,
Earthquake is
baby.
trending on Twitter, and I didn't feel anything. Maybe it's not my area. I don't know.
Ooh, is that always? That's always the concern, right? Like, oh, it's gonna be if it's a quake on Twitter, then it's probably
It's
California.
near Santa Rosa. That's the. I mean, it said trending in California underneath it.
I mean,
so.
Screw those Santa Rosa people.
Oh, it was a San Jose earthquake.
Bay Area, whatever. Who cares about that? That's not us. We got fires down here. Leave us alone. So we are live. It is Thursday. We have a big show for you, which includes some MLS transfer talk. Teams are paying cash, straight up cash, something that this man knew a lot about. That man being Chuck Blazer on my
Great
shirt
cash.
right now. This throwback best soccer show t-shirt, which I should recreate somehow. I wouldn't be stepping on any toes if I recreated this shirt, would it?
I want you to create at least one because I never got one, even though that was my idea and I contributed to
All
that.
right, which part of I'm holding it up for the video audience, so obviously on the podcast, know that I'm holding up my Chuck Blazer shirt right now that I had on my rack and I pulled off. It's a Baller Blazer shirt, classic bit here on the Best Soccer Show. Chuck Blazer with a grill. I don't know whose choice that was, but he's got a grill. He's got some pink shades
Trevor
on.
may have his idea for the grill, but the tattoos on the fingers, that was my idea. They have CONCACAF spell out across the fingers.
Just the perfect number of fingers. You just need
It
8
was
of
just
them.
right.
Just right. So, yeah, Chuck Blazer knew something about some cash. MLS teams are paying straight up cash for players. We will talk about what that means. I think Jared might have some insight on his local squad. The LA Galaxy. They're not the Los Angeles Galaxy. I don't know if you knew this. LA Galaxy.
I don't care. I know what the letters stand for.
Call them champions. That's all you need to do. Call them champions.
Call them 6 times. Dude, there's too many stars on that jersey. Have you seen the jersey? What are we gonna do? Is this gonna eventually? It's gonna be like Alabama football. There's just too many sacks or too many tackle stickers on the helmet.
Alabama doesn't do stickers, so that's how much you know about college football.
Know.
Ohio State does stickers. That's what you're thinking of. Now, it's a Buckeye. It's a little. Anyway.
But they're not the only ones. Don't multiple teams do it?
There are other teams that do stickers, but Ohio State is by far the most famous for their stickers. I think Michigan does stickers or did. I did stickers when I was in high school. They made stickers a thing when I was a Robinson Ram.
Pasties, but not stickers.
Okay, I don't know.
Jay Rodius.
What am I going to do with you? What am I going to do with you? Actually, I thought about this.
Pasties?
Maybe no. Your 6 stars. Your incredibly high number of championships you've won. And I was like, well, maybe they got to do that thing where they convert 5 into a different color star.
Well, if you notice, the 5th star is gold.
Okay.
I don't know what the reason for doing that unless you're going to drop the other ones. So it's like there's 5 silver stars and 1 gold one for the 5th.
No, that's not what you do. No.
It's almost like Roman numerals. You know,
you
need
like
to convert.
Yeah, you need. Well, I don't know which one's better, gold or silver. I mean, we think of the gold as better, right? So I guess in my head it would be 1 gold star equals 5 titles, and then a silver star equals 1.
Or maybe one of the stars is bigger. You know, like I don't know, like it's worth 5. I don't know.
A star within a star, Jared, would be.
There you go.
I mean, a star has 5 points, does it not? So
maybe an X inside the star for 5. Oh no, that's 10. It'd be a V inside the.
It'd be a V. You want to put a V inside? Actually, that's not bad. Somebody should have thought of that. Well, no, because you could put VI inside the star and just make, as long as you do the font right, Yeah. Anyway, the LA Galaxy had it slash all their salaries. People aren't getting paid anymore. And they sold Dejan Joveljic, and what else did they do? They lost Joseph Pancil on top of Ricky Puig's injury.
Mark Delgado goes across town to LAFC. Brugman goes for Sean Davis. It's a lot of change in LA, but the big thing was the former European players, the big names, the Royce, the Yoshida, captain of the team, very vocal about how MLS's rules are stupid when it comes to the winning teams and the salary restrictions. And I mean, Mayo Yoshida, I don't know if I've ever heard a player more vocal about their deal after their deal. A lot of guys hold out of training. They don't show up for preseason. I mean, just look at Lucho Acosta and Evander, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point in the show. I mean, this is nothing new, but Mayo Yoshida, the captain of your team, coming back and in his press conferences multiple times talking about how he's not getting paid, he's making less money, and the only reason he's here is because he didn't want to move his daughter again. Like, that can't be a good look for your captain going into the season.
No, that's definitely not. No, right. The fact that he's saying, I'm not here because I'm getting paid like I deserve to get paid. I'm only here because I'm not a bastard of a father, definitely reflects poorly. Well, it reflects poor. So this is, again, I put it up on the screen. MLS salary rules, pretty dumb, according to Yoshida, according to Marco Royce. It's not the Galaxy's fault, right? Oh. Again, Dejan Joveljic graduates from a U22 contract, and they're like, well, how do we fit this man into our budget? We can't do it. Got to sell him.
Hey, here's the thing. I'm sure Yoshida taking less money, they probably had to make a choice between Yoshida and Mark Delgado or someone like that. I think he still's on $800,000 or something like that. My Yoshida. So they may have made the choice between Delgado and Yoshida and said, hey, we're going to bring back the captain and do without Delgado. Now, if you'd known that this is the way he's going to act afterwards, maybe that's not the right choice.
I mean, do you think there's been a talking to? Do you think good old Will has
Marco Royce
sat
is
him
also
down?
On his Instagram walking down the Newport, actually riding a bike. It looks like riding down the Newport boardwalk. Because I saw the beach house my family used to rent as a kid go right behind him as he was going down 32nd Street.
Oh, look at that.
And he's just talking, and he starts kind of just laughing and saying how stupid the rules in MLS are, that as the champions, somehow it's harder for them this season.
Okay, but what Marco Royce is losing in salary, he's making up for in anonymity because he gets to ride his bike down the Newport Beach boardwalk with nobody bothering his ass.
Nobody bothering, but obviously a ton of sunblock.
Oh, yeah, he's German. He's Northern European, man.
Yeah, he needs a ton of that stuff.
Look, I don't have a whole lot of German. There's a little tiny bit of German. There's a lot of Irish in there. There's some other British Isles mixed in, some French. But look at this. This is
if he wears a burqa, do you think he calls it a burqui? Like St. Louis's keeper, he wears a burqui. No,
I don't know what to do with that. Okay.
So explain to me, because I'm not that sure. Explain to me, because I've been trying to figure it out. How is the salary cap harder for the returning team? Is it that the bonuses get paid and they're counted as part of the salary?
Well, I think it's a natural. So it is. We want to still be as good. Players come in with their hands out and say, "Oh, I helped you win a title. Give me money." Some players' contracts are expiring. That's just like the natural cycle. Not everybody, but if enough players' contracts are expiring.
People talk all the time about the winners get punished in MLS. What do they mean when they say the winners get punished?
I think that's basically what it is. That because the salary budget doesn't increase enough to fit everybody whose contract is coming due. They have to figure out, well, we got to let this guy go. Or again, in the case of Joveljic, incredibly gifted player, helps him win a title, scores the game-winning goal in the championship game, and then it's like, well, even if he didn't ask for more money, he counts more money on the cap.
If Mr. JTT comes on, I'm asking if there's an actual trigger that something is different for the returning teams, because it's just such a weird talking point I hear all the time, and I want to know if there's something that actually is held against them.
Right. So, yeah, I think this is...
Oh, here we go. I don't know if this is Bible. This is from Bob in the chat. It says, any performance bonuses are included in the year they would be paid out. So I guess that would be last year then. Okay.
He's not. This is an issue. This is an issue of maturing contracts leading to players asking for more money, or they're just being I mean, you can't... Every team refreshes their roster. You win a championship or not, you're not bringing back the same 25 guys or whatever on your senior roster. So you have to go out and fix a couple of things. And I gotta get a new left back to replace the old one, or I gotta get another. I gotta get a depth piece.
What I will say is that you do need to expect. I mean, a team that wins the league, or any team that is participating in the CCL, there should be some kind of of
There
perks
is.
that you get.
There is.
But you don't get an extra roster spot, right?
No, I don't.
I mean,
think
your team
so.
has to be deeper. You're putting more minutes on every player.
You get GAM. You get
Okay,
GAM, a
that's
GAM bonus. You get a GAM bonus.
But you need more people. You need depth if you're doing these competitions. You don't need more expensive players.
Well, yeah. Again, I think it is. I've talked to Garth Lagerwey about this after Seattle won a championship, and he said it's just a pain in the ass. Because it's not like you can go, hey, you did a great job. Here's $200,000 more. Hey, you did a great job. Here's another $100K. You have to go, well, actually, we can't pay you anything more. So now you've got malcontent players who are like, I deserve more than I was making. And again, you've got contracts that are coming up. So anybody who had any hand in your championship run is going to say, my contract is due. Pay me 150% of what I made last time. And they're like, well, if 5 guys do that, that eats up the bonus. I mean, that eats up the cap space. Like, it's over at that point. You don't have it. So then you have to figure out. And again, I think there's, in terms of Major League Soccer, there's expiring GAM and things that come due. I mean, there was. Again, this is,
I also think that there needs to be some kind of. I know there's relief if you lose a player for the whole season, but into a player like Ricky Puig, where you're losing almost a calendar year, though,
they're not putting him on that list.
Well, they think he's going to be back before the end of the season.
He's not going to be anything really. He's not going to deliver a ton of value on what his cap hit is. So again, this is a choice that they made, and I heard it phrased as, "Oh, they want to have him around the team. He's so important. He was so big last year. He's the reason you won a title ultimately by getting
he's rehabbing in Barcelona."
I mean, he speaks the language. What do you want? This food's amazing. What do you want?
I think it's fine that he's rehabbing in Barcelona, but it's rough that the injury is a season-long injury. It just happened in the wrong time of the year to be able to use the lever that's in play.
Right. I see what you're saying. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I think they made the right choice. I think Ricky Puig for the playoffs, assuming your team is good enough to get you to the playoffs, is probably the right move, because we all know what MLS is. It's a sprint to the finish. That's all that matters, is a sprint to the finish.
Yeah. I mean, like, remember, GAM is tradable. So if you decided 2 years ago that you needed a player and you shipped out $200,000 in GAM or $500,000 in GAM, you got to figure out how to make up for the difference, because the GAM is what helps you buy the contracts down to fit the budget. That is it. That's how this works. It is a bunch of complicated moving pieces. And it's, by the way, it's why Will Kuntz was worth everything you gave him to get him out of LAFC. It's why the most important person, Ricky Puig, Dejan Joveljic, Greg Vanney, Yoshida, Marco Royce, whoever, the most important piece of the LA Galaxy puzzle in 2024 was Will Kuntz. It was Will Kuntz.
Agreed. And I mean, I think he has enough stock that most of the fan base I've seen, despite selling fan favorites in Mark Delgado and Joveljic, have given him the latitude that would have had fans protesting a year and a half ago. He's earned the latitude. And you see, I mean, Christian Ramirez coming in, not what like for like, but probably good enough. I mean, all he's gonna have to do most of the season is finish crosses from 6 yards away. If you can do that, you'll probably score for the Galaxy. And you bring in a young player in Sean Davis that's maybe underperformed in Nashville. And then now there's rumors of the young Brazilian starlet coming in, Nascimento. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was rumored he was attached to Real Madrid a couple of years ago. He's only 20, coming in from I want to say Santos, but it's not Santos. I forget which one he's coming in from, but he's in camp right now. So
Nascimento from Santos.
Santos, yeah.
Interesting. Nascimento, never mind. Pele's name is not Nascimento.
I didn't know that.
And he played at Santos. So my brain just goes, okay. This is not Quarter of the Galaxy. That is Josh Guessman's show. That's a different show. This is the Best Soccer Show, and we will move away, I think, from the Galaxy. Do you want to stick with MLS since we're here, though?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, because there's some big moves going on right now.
Well, okay. Again, one of them involves one of your heroes from 2024, and Dejan Joveljic, going to Sporting Kansas City for how much cash did you make? Because you didn't make GAM, although I think there's a conversion.
And I am stupid enough that I don't understand what the difference is in getting a cash transaction versus one of these other things. I know it's the first of its kind. I don't understand how it helps or hurts us that it's a cash transaction.
Well, it's just like any other transfer in the world, except for Major League Soccer. It's like, hey, I want that player. How much do you want to pay me to have him switch his contract?
It's just a transfer fee.
It's just transfer fee.
So why are we calling it cash?
Because Major League Soccer doesn't make anything simple, and because technically speaking, it's not a transfer. Because it's single entity, and the ITC doesn't.
No one owns the rights, but the league is the only person that owns the rights.
Yes, right. Remember when D-Row won an MVP?
If only there's a league with promotion or relegation, the top level, that would do something right.
We're gonna do. Okay, we're teasing that early. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For anybody who is wondering, we're gonna talk about the USL D1 thing and our favorite guy, who Jared has already name checked once.
Is that JTT?
OMFPG13. It's JTT.
Who?
There you go. All right. So, yeah, this is the thing. Like, if Sporting wants to get their hands on Dejan Joveljic, in the past, they would have had to put together a TAM and a roster spot and created this package of tradable assets. And then they lose those things, right? In terms of their budget, they lose those things. Now, if they want Dejan Joveljic, they say to the Galaxy, how much do you want for him? They say, $4 million. And then they write a check. And they buy Dejan Joveljic for $4 million.
This question from the chat, then, from the Schnitzel boys: does this mean that owners can pay whatever they want for interleague transfers?
Well, okay, let's keep in mind that Major League Soccer headquarters still has final say on any deal that gets done. They have to sign off on it. That's true of any league.
There's no team owned by the same owners anymore, right? There's no two teams owned by the same owner anymore, because that would be nasty.
That is correct.
If you were to do these things between those two.
We do not have multi-club ownership in Major League Soccer within Major League Soccer right now. That is true. We used to have we used to have
Hunts and Anschutz.
The Hunts and Anschutz and all that. That's not the case. There's no moving money from one hand to only Manchester City is doing that by selling their players to themselves, NYCFC to Manchester City, or the Red Bulls. I guess they could do that. So yeah, if you don't have GAM, if you don't have the general allocation money that you use to buy down the contracts in relation to the budget, you can still go out and get players. Now you have to fit their salary under your cap, but you don't have to spend your asset of GAM to get that player. So that's where this is. It's Dejan Joveljic. That's one piece. We also had Jack McGlynn going from Philadelphia to Houston, which is interesting.
I like that move for McGlynn. I hate it for Houston, for the Union, but I think McGlynn has a chance to be a bigger piece in a team there. I mean, Houston's making a commitment that they want him.
I don't know exactly how Houston sees him. I don't know if they see him as their 10 or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they see him more as a replacement for Coco Carrasquilla, who they sold.
Just a little bit more defensive responsibility there. I don't know that's the case.
A little bit more defensive. And he's not. That's the thing. This is why it didn't work in Philly. And I know Philly people are probably not super happy that they sold Jack McGlynn, considering he just got his first U.S. men's national team goal.
It's the most Philly thing they could do, right? They sell talent. That's what they do.
That's what they do.
They build to a point. They're like the Dortmunds and the Dutch leagues. Like, they build to a point and they sell. That's how they probably stay. I bet you they're one of the more profitable teams in the league.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know how you judge that in a Major League Soccer context. I mean, they have revenue, and I guess you have to include player revenue. I mean, I do think it's interesting, like, because it will feel weird for an MLS team. Like, trades are one thing, right? Oh, we got some assets back that we know how they apply to our budget, or we got a player back and he's going to fit in this spot when we sent that other guy the other way. MLS fans are going to have to kind of reckon with being like a Southampton sometimes, right? So when you have Virgil van Dijk and Liverpool comes calling and says, we're going to give you a bunch of money for Virgil van Dijk, Southampton can't be like, no, we have to play you next year. We're not selling to you.
And if you do that enough times, you can run U.S. Soccer.
What? Give it
Joe Cocker.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, yeah. I'm thinking before he got to Southampton, but yes, you're right. There's that. I mean, that's the thing, though. That this brings Major League Soccer more in line with sort of how the rest of the world works on some level. Now, there's still a lot of weird things about MLS, and the rule book is still way too thick, and I don't like how complicated it is to follow roster building. But damn it, this is a development. This is a step. This is saying there are owners who want to be ambitious. They don't want to be limited by the fact that they don't have this funny money that we made up to help them buy down their contracts to fit a budget.
If you really want them to be ambitious, open up the cap.
Of course, Jared, of course, and we all want these things. And yeah, I'm not saying that that's not what we should ask
Just
for.
it feels the trading wheels are on too much at this point.
You still think so? You've been around since day one. Day one, you were.
Don't get me wrong. We're far and away better than we were back then, but I still think you need to let. This is a problem with single entity, is that there's no risk. There's no reason to risk because the money's all stays in the same pot, or the ownership stays in the same pot. There's too much risk in a team fucking it up for everybody.
It disincentivizes somebody in the league going like, oh, I want to go spend. Well, I mean, look, there are examples, right? Okay, so you're right in the sense that single entity is an investment vehicle kind of thing. Like we have to think about it that way. I got my money in this stock, and I want the company to make more money. It doesn't matter what I do over here in my little corner of the company, because if the whole company goes up, I benefit. So why do I need to do anything ambitious? Why can't I just sit here and let other people take risks?
It's the original soccer pyramid.
Sure. But there are examples of, and I don't know that this proves like it's okay. And I'm actually more interested in breaking up single entity than I am removing the MLS cap, like or doing something. I think
they go kind of hand in hand, to be honest with you.
Maybe, but okay.
I mean, if you get rid of single entity, things like an allocation order go away. There's no reason to have that, because that is just a fair play enterprise to make sure the team stay as balanced as possible.
Be careful, because I don't think that those don't necessarily go hand in hand, because allocation is about, well, in the beginning it was about what single entity, whatever. Everybody was owned by the same
making
people.
sure only the biggest U.S. stars only go to L.A. and New York.
Well, no, I think, maybe, but it was also about, it's a parity more than anything else. It's about parity, and the allocation system and the what is it, discovery right system is dumb, is antiquated, and it does need to go out the window. I've said this before. Like, yes, I'm sorry you are in. Sorry, I'm just going to do this, Salt Lake City or Columbus or whatever, and you don't think the big European star or the exciting young South American talent is going to be attracted to your market. Make a case. Find a way. Have better training facilities. Give them better perks. I don't know. Have the best stadium. Sell your fans. Like, we got a great fan base, or lifestyle, whatever. Like, you have to find ways to sell yourself.
This is from the chat. This comes from Thomas Dupree. He says, how can we look at where the league started and where we sit in the world just 30 years and say that single entity isn't working? It's not that it's not working. I think it's working, but I'm not going to say it's not limiting in some ways. And that
it's definitely limiting.
There's a conversation like we were just saying earlier. What my kid in diapers at 3 years old, it's working. There's no shit on the floor. But at some point, I need to make sure he starts taking those off and becoming his own man and being responsible and accountable. And
I don't know that he needs to be a man at 3 years old, but I do appreciate the sentiment. I think you're right that you have to. Yeah, no, look, there is something to that, right? And I do think that Major League Soccer is always incentivized to move slowly, and that's a problem, right? And we just got done with the NASL versus US Soccer MLS lawsuit, which obviously NASL lost. But at the time, I was like, hey, look, whatever you think about Rocco and the way he carries himself, good for Rocco rocking the boat and trying to get people to change the way that they do stuff. And I don't necessarily apply some malevolence to Major League Soccer's owners or the people in charge or Don Garber. Like, oh, you know what? They want to hold soccer down. I heard it just the other day. Do you know why MLS has so many NFL owners, Jared? It's because the NFL owners are committed to holding soccer back, because they know if they let soccer really grow, it would take over and drive down the value of their NFL franchise. Stop it already.
I thought of our next piece of merch.
What's that?
NASL, not another soccer lawsuit.
All right. You're working out. You're workshopping tonight. I see it. It's a workshop night. It's a workshop. You're trying to get that hour set together for your special.
You think they'd be mad? Do they have rights? Would we be stepping on anything by doing that?
No.
They don't own the letters.
I don't know what the trademark situation is, to be honest with you. Look, no, let's just bring this back. All right. So I want to kind of hit the big notes, because we're talking big picture, and yes, MLS should take the training wheels off. But we had Dejan Joveljic, we had Jack McGlynn, we had Ted Coup Di Pietro, but the big dominoes, the big names, Lucho Acosta, who basically groused himself, complained himself out of Cincinnati, and Evander, who was super critical of the ownership there, probably for good reason, and gets his move to Cincinnati. You also had, by the way, on the back end of that, Portland signed a brand new designated player out of France, who I think they're high on, whose name is confusingly Da Costa. So you have Acosta and Da Costa and then Evander. Based on all of this, like Cincinnati had a malcontent player who was an MVP, right? A former MVP. I don't think you love losing an MVP. I don't think you love losing an MVP within the league if you don't have to, with him going to Dallas. But they replaced him with a younger player whose numbers were just as good last year, who I think can replace Lucho Acosta very, very well. If he's
I'm more surprised. The most surprising piece about this is that Dallas is the team that goes in for Acosta. That kind of surprises me a little bit.
Does it
not traditionally a team that spends money? They're a team that grows players.
Right. I do think that they found a way to buy low on Lucho, right? I think the market on Lucho was limited because he's 30 years old. There was this talk about him going back to Argentina. But obviously the problem there is he wasn't going to Boca. Boca wasn't coming in for Lucho Acosta. And the team that I think that was interested in Estudiantes couldn't put together the money because generally speaking, Argentinian teams don't have that kind of money. I mean, I know Driussi went back down there and somebody spent a bunch of money on him. It's the Brazilian teams these days that actually have the cash. So I guess there was no market in Brazil for Lucho Acosta. But it is interesting because they've got a brand new coach they hired out of USL, who I like, Eric Quill. And I think he, give him a shot. I like that he earned his chance by being good in the USL Championship. But you consider the moves that they've made, selling or trading rather Ferreira and Riola.
I just wonder who's going to put away the balls that Lucho Acosta sets up. I mean, you sell Jesus Ferreira.
No, Peter Musa is the guy. Peter Musa is going to score goals this year. Like that I'm sure of. Like as long as and I think there was a market for him too. So I think there was a chance of him leaving. Although, obviously, in most of the big leagues in Europe, the window is closed. So I think they're still holding on to him. It could be a summer move for Petar Musa. I think he will score goals, and I think he will benefit from
let me ask you then. Here's a little pick or poison for you, MLS style.
Oh, is that what we're doing? Oh, I'm not even ready. All right.
Who got the better of the offseason? Seattle, who picks up 2 Dallas players that are key pieces for them, or Dallas, who they replaced those key players with?
Seattle. I mean, look,
they're closer to a championship team.
Dallas got the better player. There's no argument there. Lucho Acosta is the best player in that triumvirate. I mean, Ariel is a nice player, but let's leave him out. Ferreira is
Lucho Acosta a top 5 player in MLS?
Yes. Yeah. Of course he is.
I was making sure. I mean, still.
If Ricky is healthy, you've got Leo Messi.
I think it's Ricky and Messi, and then Evander.
Cucho's gone, so you got to strike him off the list. I think he probably is close. He's probably teetering right there. Okay, so last year, Seattle,
we do have Almiron coming back as well. Yeah, think about that. We'll see. He's this season though.
Yeah, well, look, and the jury's out on players that are coming in like Latte Lath, who was a record signing, and the guy in Austin, who they spent a bunch of money for as well. We'll see. Last year, Seattle was a conference championship level club, right? They made a conference title game, which obviously you guys won, and they had a standard regular season for them.
And what held them back from potentially beating the Galaxy? They're one-dimensional. That dimension is fantastic. Their defense.
Yeah. But so they finished 4th in the West behind RSL, the Galaxy, and LAFC, right? They were 7 points off the pace that LAFC and the Galaxy set. I think they returned pretty much all of their goal scoring contributions from last year, right? They didn't lose Rusnak, they didn't lose Morris, they didn't, you know what I'm saying? They bring back everything that was important for them last year, and now they add Jesus Ferreira and Paul Arriola. And I don't know that Ferreira is going to burn up the league in Seattle, and I don't think he's going to score 20 goals, but if they get 10 out of him or 12 out of him, They're a West winning kind of team.
What they get from a full season out of De La Vega as well, who they didn't get for a good portion of the season last year.
Right, De La Vega is an X factor. So let's come back to the dominoes falling. Lucho goes to Dallas. Still weird with the project there. Again, I'm kind of hopeful they figure something out. And they still have Musa. They brought in some pieces. They did sell Tafari or trade Tafari to LAFC. So I don't know. There's a couple things there. Evander is going to be fascinating in Cincinnati. If he gives them anything close to what Lucho gave them, they're still a factor in the Eastern Conference. And again, I said Portland went out and spent a bunch of money on a DP, and we don't know about that. So I guess.
Let me ask you a question, though. When you look around the league, Dallas, a lot of teams can use Lucho Acosta. But when you look at Ferreira, he's not going to make Dallas a championship team this year. But when you look around the league, is there a team you're surprised didn't go in on him? Assuming everyone has the funds, what's the team when you look at he's the piece they're missing? And I have a team in mind for me.
Piece that they're missing. Wow.
Like where Lucho Acosta is the piece that's missing that I think could really make a difference in their team.
Well, I mean, we just talked about Houston losing two big pieces in Ache and Coco Casquilla. I'm not sure that he would have made them a championship level team or anything.
For me, it's DC United. You have Benteke. You have Benteke up there. Imagine how good he was this season with like no help.
Yeah, but
if you put a Lucho Acosta into that team, I think that elevates that team to where they're contending.
Yeah, but it's a team built on pressing. I mean, they were skipping the midfield so much to try to get the ball to Benteke towards parts. I mean, I don't know.
It feels like they're a creative midfielder away from being decent, though. That's what I'm saying about DC United.
Okay. Well, they finished tied with Atlanta on points and missed the playoffs because of, I think, goal difference.
Yeah.
So, they could have been Atlanta. I'm not saying they would have beaten Miami, but they could have been Atlanta last year. So there's that. Look, there's lots of projects in MLS that are interesting. Mm-hmm. We maybe we'll spend some more time on them. We haven't yet talked about U.S. men's national team players, and particularly I'm fascinated by what Thiago Mata said about our boy Weston McKennie. Once again, Weston McKennie is impressing a manager who had doubts about him in the beginning.
That dude's big game, Wes. He enjoys the Champions League level. He steps up for that.
Yeah, he does indeed. So, but we will come back to that because I want to do what I think did last week. Was he here last week?
It was 2 weeks ago. We didn't have a show last week, but our last show, yes.
2 weeks ago, OMFPG13. It is JTT. So we'll bring him in right now. Jonathan Taylor Tannerwall.
OMFPG13. It's JTT.
Who? I gotta know, John. Hold on, John. I gotta know. Has anyone said that to you out loud in public yet at a stadium or anything like that?
Yes, in fact.
Wow. Then our mission here is complete.
That's the power of the best soccer show.
There's a guy who works for, or has worked for, and I don't remember his name, but I'm sure he's out there listening somewhere. He works for the New York Liberty of the WNBA, and he listens to the show on a regular basis.
Nice.
I've been seen by other people over time. Jared, I have to correct you on something.
Oh, shoot. Here it comes.
Here we go.
Lucho Acosta would be going back to DC United.
That's true. I mean,
that's true.
You're not getting the best version. You're not getting the Wayne Rooney assist Lucho Acosta. You're getting a different version of him now.
I whatever. But you can't quite ignore that in the equation of DC United meeting.
Aren't they? Acosta. Can you imagine that team, what Benteke could do with the service that Acosta could provide?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't they come into maybe a top 5, top 4 team in the East just with that addition?
I think they'd be very good. There are things with DC United that unfortunately I will believe when I see them.
Yeah.
But yes, they'd be much better.
All right. So JTT's not here to talk about Lucho Acosta going back to DC or anything Major Leagues, or even Jack McGlynn or Bradley Carnell or anything Philadelphia related, which is obviously his usual beat. He is here to talk about the United Soccer League's decision announced today through a coordinated drop of stories from Paul Tenorio and I think Alexander Abnos as well.
The Guardian was the other one, yeah.
Yeah, about their decision to start a Division I men's outdoor soccer league in 2027-28. That slash was an interesting thing for me. Obviously, that would be post North American World Cup. JTT and I had a little back and forth this morning when it was still embargoed. He actually gave me a tip that it was coming down, and then Paul's story dropped. John, how do we enter this conversation? Like, what's the right entry point about this? Because it's a big announcement, but I'm a cynic, and my brain goes, yeah, okay, I'll believe it when I see it.
Are you a cynic, Jason? Am I a cynic? I can't imagine that I could possibly be a cynic on something like this.
I mean, you've been around American soccer long enough, John. It turns us all.
I really thought that I had put away the Soccer Wars apparel for like a day and a half.
That's what we need to do for a merch drop, Jared, is something Soccer Wars related.
Camouflage, do a helmet,
Yeah, I mean,
bayonet spear. I don't know what you want to like. I'm not really a military analogy person,
right?
But this is one day a piece if we can have it, and no, we can't.
Well, John, this story goes back a year and a half.
Oh, it goes more back than that, and I'll let Jason take the lead when we get to that.
But it goes to when the USL was awarded a second D1 status, and that was when they were in a tiff with MLS at the time. There was stuff going back and forth, and it felt like it was a knee-jerk reaction to punish MLS a little bit. Correct?
Sort of. A commenter asks, can the USSF sanction multiple Division I leagues in a country? Yes. That's the whole point of this. If you reach certain standards that are laid out in a book that is called Professional League Standards.
Is it a book? We're calling it a book? Go pick that up.
Somebody printed it out on paper once upon a time, and it might have been me for all I know.
Okay.
If you meet the standards, you're supposed to be able to get a Division I league. They did that on the women's side with the USL Super League.
Can I say something? Can I add something just to that part of this? Because I do think it's important. Because I did have somebody on Blue Sky say, is there another country in the world where there are 2 Division I leagues? I said, I don't think so. Now, it was clarified that India had a kind of this swapping thing where an upstart league pushed down a different league. Anyway, it doesn't happen. As a general rule, it doesn't happen.
And there's a reason why.
Right. Well, but here in the United States, and this is in evidence through the lawsuit that NASL filed against U.S. Soccer and MLS, which is you can't tell me I can't compete with you if I, et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, NASL's beef was that the waivers were applied incorrectly or whatever. U.S. Soccer only has so much power, right? Their power only goes as far as the law allows their power to go, John. And in this case, yes.
But there's a bit of a deliberateness to that because especially in Europe, the national FAs set the rules under which the professional leagues operate.
Yes.
U.S. Soccer has been politely and impolitely by a number of people over the years told to mind their own business and get out of the way of whatever leagues want to do. Therefore, if somebody comes in asking, I'm going to get this out of the way at the top. Sorry, this is one of my favorite.
No, go.
I think if somebody comes in demanding that U.S. Soccer mandate promotion and relegation from the top down and theoretically only have one league at each level, and oh, by the way, it's got to be my league and not yours.
Right.
Some people call that government interference in the free market.
Yes. Yeah, it's not, again, that is lawsuit.
I think government interference in the free market is what we do now.
Well, okay, but that's a different story.
I'm only going to go this far, Jared, and no farther. Some of the people demanding government interference in the free market of American soccer have been Republicans, and that's as far as I'm going to go.
Okay.
So Mr. Anschutz should want this.
I don't want to. Okay, look.
I said it's as far as I'm going. But that's
so again, this is capitalism as a simple way of saying this is capitalism butting up against, hey, we want to organize a pyramid of leagues that have promotion and relegation and interact in all these ways. And as I've said before, right, American soccer is built on a league model, not a club model. You talk about the history of the sport in other places, like in England or Spain or Italy, whatever leagues you care about. Most places. Jared is adjusting himself, like literally adjusting himself right now. If you whatever leagues we're talking about, the leagues you watch on television on a given Saturday or Sunday, those clubs started because a bunch of lads got together and decided they wanted to start a team for their school or for the factory they worked at or whatever, and then they went, oh well, we want to play games against other people and we'll put together leagues. It's completely the other way around. It's sort of backwards here. Now I know we've had clubs that have matriculated through leagues, John, but generally speaking, it's like, let's start a soccer league. That's the business I'm in. And then, oh, Cleveland, you get a team, and Utah, you get a team, and Texas, and we'll find people to pay the fee we decide in order to start those teams. And so because of that, you just have business interest forget about the soccer part of it, right?
USL, we have.
Yes.
No. USL is its own business doing what it thinks is right for its business, And again, it's protected by antitrust laws on some fronts when it comes to things like professional league standards and D1 status. So, there are multiple prongs to this conversation, right? And again, as a cynic,
here's the thing. At the end of the day, though, Jason, they are doing this thinking that promotion relegation is the linchpin to turning this. This.
Are they though?
Is it enough?
Are they though?
I don't know. That's the
How
thing.
so,
Nobody
John?
knows that part of it.
We have commenters asking this, and so I'm going to jump into this portion of the proceedings as well, because Paul Tenorio and Alex Adamos did a good job of pinning Paul McDonough, or trying to, on the subject. And for those of us who really know the soccer wars, as three of us do, I found it very interesting that Paul McDonough did the talking to the media, but Alec Papadakis did the table setting in the press release.
Right. Yes.
And Alec Papadakis has been in this horse race for a rather long time at this point.
Yeah, look, you have to think of Papadakis as you would think of, I don't know, Rupert Murdoch or somebody, right? Like, again, you can think, oh, this is about soccer and it's about doing right by the game and promotion and relegation maybe, and giving access to new markets to top division soccer in America. And that, look, all those things can be true, but in my opinion, a lot of this is secondary to a positioning of USL to say, we don't want to be held back, just like the NASL at the time. We don't want to be held back by being called second division. Right? This is a label that really you wonder how much it makes a difference. And this is a conversation a lot of people have been having today, John. Let me ask you, how much of a difference does it make to a league or the clubs within it to be called D1 versus D2?
I'll answer that question to use something you wrote on social media today. I don't work in the private equity field, so I don't know.
Okay, so again,
but in the private equity field, what is king in 2025? It is disruption. That's all that is cared about in the private equity world right now is disruption
and association with fancy shiny things.
Yeah, and so you're a new system. You're just trying to disrupt the marketplace by giving at least a percentage of the marketplace what they say they want, which is promotion and relegation. Now, do the
USL isn't saying it, and that's the point that I want to hammer.
They're not saying it. There's this. This is where USL has kind of been diabolical.
We are set up to do it, but not saying we are doing it.
Go ahead, Jason, because after you do, I'm going to read from their press release.
Okay. It's like my wife when she says that we're going to do things, but she always has the caveat. She's too lazy. She's too tired.
Yeah,
it may not happen. But we have the bed and we have the tools.
Right. So again, so when Jake Edwards was the guy in charge at USL, or nominally in charge at USL, and talking to the media consistently, talking to me, talking to John,
8 years ago,
every outlet out there, they were dropping these little hints. We might want to do pro well. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a vote. Jeff Reuter's covered this very well at The Athletic, so go read his stuff. They're going to have a vote. They're going to talk about it. And it's always like, well, they brought it up in a meeting when they decided they're not ready for it, or they're going to review, or they're going to study it, or whatever. And I'm not saying that there's not some appetite for it. I do think anybody who gets involved in soccer in America thinks about pro rel and thinks about the idea of implementing it, and it's this like, oh, could it be this magical world that will open up new doors? As you said, Jared, could it be disruption that would benefit any competition that decides to involve itself? Now,
it has to be a magical world because somehow they found 20, 30 owners that are willing to go down a division.
Right.
Why exactly? Why for 8 years, the 8 years that the USL has been talking about this, because I went and looked up my old stuff today, and it's probably been longer than that, close to a decade at this point. Why? They've had a decade to launch promotion and relegation between the USL champion and League One, and they have not done it. Nisa had a shot. They didn't do it. The League for Clubs is going to potentially talk about it. I'm gonna invoke an even worse name here. He's probably going to be charging after me, and I'll have to live with the consequences of saying the name Scott Michaels. They've all talked about it, and none of them have done it. And why have none of them done it? Because none of them actually want to take the risk. They want somebody else to lose the money.
Right. Again, and so to me, and I've heard some things. I'm not going to confirm. I don't have independent verification, but I have heard that in this moment in particular, that maybe what the league decided to announce was not necessarily something all of the owners of the USL, and obviously they're talking about D1 and bringing some teams up from the championship, and they've got to be, by the PLS, they're supposed to have 12 teams in their first year. We'll see if they ask for a waiver there. But my understanding is not all of the owners were sort of like, yes, pushing the big green button to do this. And
I'm not sure they all knew.
Exactly. This is my point. So a lot of this seems like posturing. And so forgive me to all the people who want to believe that this is a next step towards opening up our system and doing all the things we have dreamt up for years and years and years. My cynical nature about American soccer comes from experience, and my experience tells me that a lot of this is just for show, and it may be for trying to position the league to be sold. The USL is a business to be sold. And again, that's just speculation on my part, right? And I'm not even saying that they're not trying to create a plan that can then be sold to somebody else who will then take up the baton and say, all right, we'll do it. But that will be up to the new owners. It won't be up to Alec Papadakis anymore.
So there's a comment in here. You have the ability to post the comments.
I do. Yes.
For years, USL makes announcements that they will be voting that one to talk about pro-rel and has never made any movement. No, they've made movement. They just haven't gotten all the way there yet. I know they've made movement because I've heard from more than, they've had serious discussions. I'm not going to deny that part of it. They just haven't gone all the way over the line yet. And here I'm going to read a bit of the press release.
Okay.
With the USL Championship and USL League One already providing a strong foundation for player development and competition, the new league completes the system, ensuring seamless progression for talent at all levels. And then Alec Papadakis said, the USL has long been committed to creating a structure that drives growth, opportunity, and long-term success in American soccer. The USL model empowers clubs with greater autonomy and fosters a dynamic, interconnected system. And then off he went and so on and so forth. They didn't say the words.
Yeah. Pretty words. Those are pretty words.
Interconnected system could mean you can loan freely or something between the leagues.
Well, and the cynic, and I don't know if we have any cynics in this room, says to me, taking the USL literally, and not for the question that we all know and they all know we have about pro-rel, that the money now is not in pro-rel, it's in poaching the young talents before MLS teams can get them. They do the development. They sell them to Europe for $10 million, and that's how they make the money. And I went on Blue Sky today, and I said, that's a great idea. Some MLS teams actually do it. Ask the Philadelphia Union about their finances because they have spent a lot of money and really not made it all back.
If that's the case, if that's the model, John, then you can't be in the big markets because that model isn't going to put people in the seats versus LAFC and New York Red Bulls and Miami. You're never going to be competing for those markets because it's not a sustainable model that people in the seats want to watch just to get married to a player that's only going to be there for 1 year before you get sold.
We will find out about that.
What is their attraction?
We will find out about that in two ways. One is if they have heard from a broadcaster that they would get on board. And there are more outlets broadcasting soccer in the United States than there used to be when ESPN and Fox and Univision were fairly resolute back in the day about saying we don't want this because we don't want a soccer league without New York, LA, and Chicago in it. It's a different landscape now. And when the USL said mentioning 2027, some people thought that's the year after the World Cup. My thought was that's the last year of their deal with CBS. And I don't know what their ESPN deal is, but are they going to market for a new TV deal starting in 2028 with the potential of a D1 league on the table?
Right. Look, again, I asked what benefit there is to the USL to have a D1 league. And okay, there's a couple things that are sort of tangible. One of them is potentially, although this is on CONCACAF and it gets a little messy and complicated and we're going to have to do this dance again, but there is access to the CCC. If you're a top division league, you're supposed to have access to the Champions competition in CONCACAF, right? Again, that's sort of like before we get there and before they have to figure out how to move spots around and all this stuff, but it's at least on the table. I guess, sort of in the abstract, you could argue, well, it's easier to sell the idea of coming out and watching soccer if you think it's the top division, but I'm not sure there's any evidence that fans care all that much. And then there's, I guess, if you're going into meetings with corporate sponsors and partners, it's easier to sell if you say we're the top division. Well, we're not the only top division. We're a top division. Sort of like saying, oh, we're not the SEC, but we're the Big Ten. Like, oh, okay, I guess that's the same.
I think that works if you're Detroit FC and you're Sacramento Republic or you're Tulsa or you're like wherever the secondary markets in the US are, you're the D1 team in that market.
And here's my question.
I don't think that's sustainable for the big markets though.
I don't either, but I can think of at least 3 markets off the top of my head that are large markets where the MLS teams play out in the sticks.
Yeah, sure.
Dallas, Denver, and Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I don't think the USL can build a Division I size stadium within the city limits of Philadelphia, but the USL Super League went into Dallas and is playing at the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, you can say the same thing for Chicago and Galaxy as well.
I would be curious how sort of American soccer, a certain kind of fan, and this, by the way, it's not a judgment. I appreciate the passion of American soccer fans. Been around for a long time, talked to a lot of them. I'm not coming at this from a protect MLS level, but I remember when St. Louis City was awarded their MLS franchise and how people went nuts over the end of St. Louis FC. And, it's not fair. They shouldn't be allowed to put a team there. The U.S. Soccer needs to step in and protect the marketplace because there's already a team. Why would they put a team there? And, of course, in terms of business.
If you have to worry about another team, you're not truly a D1.
Well, they weren't, obviously. But I think the argument is how could they ever sort of grow into something great and big if we kill them off, if we sort of, sorry for this analogy, smother them in the crib and then let a $500 million or $300 million club come in on top of them. But nobody that cared about St. Louis City or St. Louis FC rather is going to scream about a USL team going into an MLS market and competing with a Denver or competing with, any of these teams that play in the sticks, a Dallas, for example. I don't think that would happen.
Kroenke's not shaking in his boots if a USL team comes into Denver. Maybe him. Maybe him. He's one of the only ones.
Well, Denver's an interesting example. I'll go a little too far off on a tangent about this one, but Jason, it's a town you know pretty well, so that NWSL team, if they're in the city, is going to make a real interesting dynamic.
They would prefer to be playing in the city.
Yeah, I don't think those two teams are competing for the dollar, though.
Oh, yes.
Do you think Angel City and LAFC are competing for the dollar in the same stadium? I don't.
The same stadium is the key word there.
I don't think Galaxy's worried about Angel City
and Sporting either. Sometimes play at the same hour, and people have to make decisions.
Okay, yeah, but if you're a major metropolitan city, the model shows that most sports have 2 teams in major metropolitan cities.
I'm going to say and that brings me to a city that I was going to mention a moment ago and didn't and now will, which is New York. And the Cosmos turf is Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
It's a little harder to plant a USL flag in Brooklyn if they want to. I don't know if they will. In the past, we would have said, okay, MLS is in the Bronx and North Jersey, go to Queens or Long Island or Brooklyn and put the flag down. Well, now New York City's FC is going to be in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I always thought that an MLS franchise or soccer franchise in general, I always thought they should go borough specific. I know you want to cast a wide net and be the New York team of choice, but I always thought going borough specific speaks more to what soccer is.
Obviously Brooklyn FC, whatever, but nobody wants to limit themselves unless they have to. Right, and that's the thing about soccer. It's scary enough to start a soccer club, and the history is littered with dead soccer teams. So why would you blame anybody for trying to cast as wide a net as possible, even if ultimately it's proven that maybe they should have been a little bit more specific?
But to John's point, I think USL works. The smaller nature of USL and the less risk there is, you could go borough specific.
If NYCFC had built its stadium in the Bronx, now there's a hole on Long Island.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now that stadium's in Queens, whether or not this was the intent, I don't. There's chess in that, but still, now you can't go to Long Island in the same way because New York City FC is there.
Yeah, I mean you have to go
going that way, but not now the hole's in the Bronx, but you're not going to build a USL Super League stadium in the Bronx in the way that you might on Long Island, I think.
Yeah, well, no, space is a different thing. I want to come back as a point of reference for everybody who's we've been talking about the professional league standards a little bit, and again. What USL is doing is declaring intention. Now they have to clear some hurdles, and I don't even want to open up the Pandora's box that is arguing whether the professional league standard should exist which is one question, or whether they are arbitrary in nature, which is a different question. And again, we just had a lawsuit about some of this stuff. For now, these are the standards, right? And this is what U.S. Soccer is trying to hold leagues to in terms of first division status. You have to have teams in at least 3 time zones. You have to have teams in 3 time zones. You can't be a regional league. You can't be an Eastern time zone, Central time zone league without West Coast teams or Rocky Mountain teams or Mountain Time teams. I think obviously because of the population centers, you're going to be West Coast, East Coast, and then fill in your dots everywhere else. At least 75% of the league's teams must play in a metropolitan market of at least 1 million people. And John Morrissey did really good work over at usltactics.com, his website, breaking down the teams right now that qualify, that meet that level and don't, and then also stadiums. Stadium's a thing here. You have to have a stadium of capacity of at least 15,000. It must be enclosed.
That's the hardest part.
Well, enclosed is also a thing, too, John, because we're not talking about throwing up a couple of stands and putting a field in the middle and saying, oh, we got 15,000 seats. If it's not a wholly enclosed, I mean, I guess as long as you put a perimeter around it, it counts.
You want to know the 10 cities in America that have more than 1,000 people right now? Now, cities,
1 million.
Metropolitan areas, a million.
Yeah.
There's 9 currently.
Wait,
the
cities though.
Metropolitan area. Yeah, we're talking regions.
Let me just tell you cities though. Here's the 9
Okay.
cities that have more than that. Number 9, Dallas, Texas. MLS is there. San Diego, MLS is there.
Right.
San Antonio, MLS is not there.
Right.
Philadelphia,
That's 1.
Phoenix, not there, but tough
Phoenix.
weather city to do soccer.
Well, they got a
Houston.
team. They got a team.
Yeah. Houston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York.
Yeah.
So I granted it's not the metropolitan area. If you go out there, maybe you have Jacksonville, Austin, Fort Worth, San Jose right after that in terms of numbers, all 900,000 or more. And metropolitan wise, they're going to hit that number.
Okay,
They will get the time zones is the biggest question other than stadium capacities, and they will hit that by going to Phoenix or Albuquerque.
Right. Well, they're. I mean, okay. Let me come back to John Morrissey again. I'm gonna. And by the way, John Morrissey on Morning Kick Around tomorrow. If you want to hear more about this story with somebody who covers it.
You got
USL.
Morrissey?
Yeah, we got Morrissey. Not the Morrissey you care about. Different Morrissey. Okay. By the way, people are asking about how Inter Miami Stadium. What is it called now? It was Drive Pink. What is it now? Chase Field
Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does it count for the enclosed stadium? Again, I think as long as even if you just have stands, as long as it's enclosed for entry, they just don't want it open to people just walking in.
And it's not going to matter 2 years from now, or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, for them. Okay. So in terms of capacity, isn't the stadium question the biggest question, John? Isn't that the biggest?
The only other, yes, but the only other one is the time zones, as I said.
Okay. All right. Because you've got Louisville
stadium
City.
is the big one.
Wonderful little facility that Louisville City built for their men's and their women's teams, right? Their population in the metro population of Louisville, 1.3 million. They qualify for that. The capacity of the stadium is only 11,700, and I don't believe it is expandable as currently constructed. I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it is.
Okay, maybe it is. Maybe they planned for that. But still, you have to do the work and invest the money to get yourself to 15,000. Phoenix Rising, they've played in 4 stadiums. They've been bouncing around the region in these modular stadiums. Obviously, the area is big enough to meet the standard, but they have 10,000 seats. Colorado Springs Switchbacks won the title. There's only 768,000 people in the metropolitan area of Colorado Springs. No, again, here's the other part of this that we have to mention. Waivers are going to be a thing. This USL doesn't go into this thinking, well, we've got to have all of these boxes 100% checked. They're going to be asking for waivers because MLS got waivers, because NASL got waivers, because teams all the time get waivers. I guess what the question is, what is the appetite for that? And again, is this something that USL is committed to because they have a bigger plan? Is it about, marketability? Is it about position for sale? All these things are still up in the air, John. It's still very unclear. Sure. Give me another one.
Tampa St. Pete. How are you going to take Al Lang Stadium from 7,500 to 15,000?
Right. Unless you're going to go rent out the Buccaneer Stadium to play your games, which is a bad situation for soccer. I mean, that's the other thing here. The trade-off is, hey, we turned a minor league baseball stadium into a fine soccer facility, but we've only got 7,500 seats to meet the standard. What do? Well, we better go play at the Bucks venue. Well, okay, we got to pay money to the Glazers. That's fun, and it's an ugly environment. Look at Birmingham, for example. Birmingham. Look how English I am. Birmingham. the population is big enough. I didn't know Birmingham was 1.1 million people in the region, but it counts. They play in a big football stadium. You don't want that from a product salability.
Wait, now, Jason,
perspective.
what's the threshold? 75% of the teams have to have stadiums that are.
I think it's a lot.
Is it
What's
the threshold?
time zones is the 75?
No, okay, so
you have to be in 3 times. It doesn't say how many teams you need. Just
so for the stadium, there's no requirement for stadium then.
15,000 capacity is the
at every one of them, or only a percentage of the teams have to.
Okay,
because here's my thing.
The capacity of each club stadium must exceed 15,000, but again, there will be waivers given. It's just whether or not the league can get more than a couple to meet.
So if you can get a waiver, and you can get that requirement at colleges, all sorts of stadiums, in all these metropolitan areas, pretty much, you can find a stadium in most of those areas that meet these things.
Colleges won't get you. Colleges won't do it though.
Okay, but just assume we can. Give me just a little bit of leeway here. Assuming that you do
beer sales,
and you can get one waiver.
That's okay now.
You get into the New York metropolitan area and you go someplace like Belson Stadium for St. John's. You put up, so you put money into it. You add to the stadium.
They are not
St. John's won't do that. They're not on a parking garage.
No, and they're not giving a waiver for Belson. That place is an absolute never.
But if a team was going to give infrastructure to expand the seating there,
no, they'd go to Hofstra.
Which now we're back on Long Island, right?
Island.
So
And St. John's is Queens anyway, so you're not going there because it's in.
Well,
if you want to be in New York proper, that's how you do it on a budget.
Whatever.
Anyway,
all of this is wild speculation at this point. Again,
I want to mention one other thing that is important, but go ahead, Jason.
No. We should put a bow on this. I do want to briefly talk about Americans in the Champions League, which we promised earlier in the show.
Might be a bonus.
It might be a bonus. We should make that a bonus. Go ahead, John. You have a point.
The last time the USL got close to MLS, you'll know exactly how many years ago this was. I don't quite remember. The last time MLS then uncorked the CBA that raised the minimum salary so high that it flattened the USL to dust in terms of pay, and that was that for a while. I would not poke that bear, or I would do so very carefully.
Well, but that's the thing. Again, I am not clear because and this is McDonough's messaging, which is fascinating to me, and I would love to talk to him. And I put up a clip or a section from Felipe Cardenas's piece. John, I shared it with you first and then put it on Blue Sky from about 14 months ago when Cardenas interviewed Paul McDonough. And McDonough said, we don't see MLS as competition. We're not competing with that. We don't want to compete with MLS. Like, this was not the Bill Peterson NASL style approach to running a soccer league or the Rocco Camiso style of being antagonist. At least it didn't come off that way, right? They were like, we don't want to fight it with MLS. We want to find our own niche. Okay, so is this move? Because again, just because you say we want to start a D1 league does not necessarily mean that you're trying to compete with MLS, although it's going to feel like that for a lot of people. So is this, in substance, is this a challenge to MLS, or is it really just, again, sort of taking advantage of what I'll call a loophole? It's not, but a loophole in the rules that allow them to do that because, again, in this country in particular, we don't have a strong FA that's allowed to dictate to leagues whether they can be D1, D2, or whatever, as long as they meet standards, which could always be challenged in court. John?
And oh, by the way, to add to that, you want Sacramento, Vegas, Phoenix, Detroit, Pittsburgh, etc., and you think that in saying this, you're not going to encourage MLS to go back to expanding more than it needs to and gobble up those markets?
Yeah, and this is the thing. You said poking a bear, and I guess that's right, at least in the sense that you could not expect any business who is seeing another business in its area do anything. I don't even not even directly. How many times have you seen a much bigger business squash a smaller one or gobble them up because it's just, oh, you're just there? It's like, we don't even know if you're really going to be competition, but why even worry about you? We'll just take care of you now. Now, this does, again, bring us back to the possibility of USL being sold, and plenty of people have said, well, maybe MLS buys USL. John, anything to that as an idea?
I'd be very surprised if the USL goes for that, because there are some people down there who have a lot of pride. And I think we've named a few of them on this show already.
Okay.
I don't see it. What I do see, And by the way, it goes back. It actually ties into the cash transfers thing that you guys were talking about beforehand, because, as I said, the last time the USL came close, MLS raised the minimum salary so high that the USL couldn't compete with it for players. Now,
look, go ahead.
What cash transfers is doing is moving American soccer players for their actual value after 20 to 30 years of $300,000 in allocation money. Now we know how much they're actually worth.
Yeah, it's setting a benchmark for Dejan Jovic is now worth $4 million. If USL wants to $4 million, and USL wants to come in and try to compete with that, is any team going to spend $4 million for Jovic? No, I don't think so.
Or $3 million for a Jack McGlynn.
This is again.
Whereas GAM is a fictional term, a fictional amount that doesn't have a marketplace.
Right.
Outside of MLS.
Right. Look, whether or not the cash market has anything to do with any of this, I don't think so. But I think probably there were owners, ambitious ones in the league, who are clamoring for, hey, I don't want to have to spend GAM on a player. If I want to get a player, I'll just pay my money. But in terms of that thing about maybe there's 2 Division 1s and USL has one of them, but their salaries are nowhere near, or the money they can spend is nowhere near what MLS can spend. Again, that brings me back to that question of what does the USL gain from being labeled Division 1, except for that maybe off chance they'll spring an upset in the CCC or whatever it is. It's one of those things. You're setting a very high bar for yourself that you have to clear through the PLS, and you're making this big statement about it. And I'll come back to what Jared said, right? And I actually made this comment in our bestie Slack. Go to patreon.com/thebestsoccershow if you want to be part of this. It feels like just a disruption play. Like, it feels like, hey, we're going to set things up for you, potential buyer of USL, to come in and grab this plan, which is nobody's had the balls to do it yet, which is Institute Pro Rel in America. And look, if we give you a 1st Division league, we already got a 2nd Division league, and we've already got a 3rd Division league. All you got to do is hit the switch.
It also just, if you don't play right, it has little brother energy. And that's the thing that you don't want, though. Because right now, it's giving me little brother energy.
And to that point, the USL, over the many years, has acted this way at times. This is not a new way of behaving by the USL.
Yeah.
And that is part of why I brought up earlier. And I know that some USL employees are very regular listeners to and fans of this show. What I'm about to say is not about them.
Okay. All right.
But I brought up Alec Papadakis' name earlier.
Uh-huh.
And he's a public figure, so I'm going to put his name on the record.
Yes.
He is among the people at the USL who have gotten fidgety over the years. And when I saw this come down, I thought, here he goes again. Not here he goes for the first time.
Well, okay. And I don't even know, not being personally acquainted with Alec Papadakis, I'm not even sure I would blame anybody in this situation. Again, so much of this can be viewed by simple competition in a marketplace, regardless of what business you're in. Like, these moves they're not fundamentally about soccer. They are fundamentally about positioning and business and what advantage you think you can get, or whether it's a disruption play or whether it's a niche play or whether it's, and again, I will say this, because I had a little bit of a back and forth with somebody on Blue Sky today who I can't recall. I wasn't trying to engage in this deep way about whether this is good or bad. I asked some people for their opinions, and I had somebody say, look, if this pushes MLS, if MLS has to respond, well, then that's a net positive. That's a net positive.
Oh, and I think they will.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, you may not, just remember, if you're a fan of a USL team, or you like the idea of an alternative to Major League Soccer being predominant in America, you might not like the result. Because, let's be honest, who has the supremacy financially, market-wise, stadium-wise? Regardless of whether USL gets a D1 league off the ground or not, it will be a very long time before you could say they are challenging MLS in any serious and actual way.
And if the one area in which I'm most interested in seeing, okay, really go compete if you want to, is not on players. Mm-hmm. It's on if MLS goes to the winner and the USL takes the summer.
That has been posited. I've seen that out there. Yeah.
Because I'm not saying that I know this, but I've talked to enough people at this point. I think I've said it on this show before. I think we are the closest we have ever been to MLS pulling the trigger. I don't know that they will actually do it, but I think probably all three of us would agree, just from what's been out there already, they're the closest they've ever been.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, again, I'll come back to business. MLS is like, oh, we got a bunch of these players, and Europe seems to want our players. And when can we get more players into Europe and make more money? If our calendars align and our clubs were willing to let our guys go before the season, not in the middle of the season.
And the broadcasters might back us on it.
Yeah, there could be a thing there. All right. This has been an extra long edition of the Best Soccer Show, and a lot of on USL in the move, which I think is appropriate. JTT, thank you very much for coming by. Should I play you out? I got to play him out, right? That's how that works?
Is that JTT?
OMFPG-13, it's JTT!
I don't actually know where that's from.
It's from TMZ. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Justin Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement back in the day.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Come on.
I'll say this, though. What I'm not happy about is JTT now gets his drop more than I get mine. And that's unacceptable.
You did get it.
He got it 3 times tonight.
No. I played it before he came on, then I played him in, then I played him out.
Yes. No, I don't like JTT's taking over. He's taking my spot.
Come on.
He's taking my spot.
Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you're not here to fill your spot. JTT, thank you very much.
JTT, start growing your hair now. You better get a coif.
We're going to remove JTT from the proceedings and go back to us. And I think we do need to wrap. We're not going to be able to talk about Weston being Thiago Motta's favorite player, which is great.
We can if you want to do a bonus. I'm not sure if we have time. Do you have time?
The wife is off tomorrow. She took off for the long weekend.
That means you get to be on tonight?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
That out.
But then again, we owe the besties a bonus. Like we owe the besties a bonus. Do. All right. Yeah. You know what? Let's not because I don't want to get in trouble. That's
you got to commit next time. Then
I think everybody is going to understand that I need to think about my home life first.
Your little
right?
Davis.
That's not appropriate. You wanted it. That's what
because I called it little. Is that the problem?
Jay Rodius.
I got no issues with
little Day. How little Day?
I got no issues there. Like I'm good. Like I feel good. I don't. You can say whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me. I'm good. All right. Is there business? Is there other business? I mean, I feel like I should be telling people about other things.
They can catch you on some other places. You want to tell them where they can catch you these days?
Yeah. Oh, I did have something to tell you. Guess what happened twice on the radio over the last 2 weeks?
You called him Jared.
Called him Jared twice.
Yes, finally. Finally.
I'll give you another one.
Jay Rodius.
And you know what?
I knew you were real.
This is the funniest thing. He's like, who's Jared?
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, I've been doing this.
Wait, why you got to bring me up just to bring me down?
I mean, I can't help it that he didn't know who you were. I don't know.
You're not talking me up enough to him in the segments and stuff.
Am I supposed to be like this?
WNBC.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I love you more, brother, because we've been together for a much longer period of time, but I have fun on that show. It's pretty funny. If you don't listen to WTF in the afternoons on Sirius X, don't get jealous. Just let me. It's my livelihood, son. Like it's what I do to make money and pay for things.
I just don't want you to like it.
You want me to do it begrudgingly?
I don't want you to like it more than this. That's what I don't want.
I don't like it more than this.
Oh, okay, clip that up someone. Send it to him, then he'll know who I am.
You want to commit to being
I just want him to be the other woman. I don't want me to be the other woman.
He's always been. That's always been the case. That's always been the. Don't you know this? You don't need me. Don't be fishing for compliments. You don't. come on. Do you do that?
Tell me I'm bigger.
Are you like? Oh, come on. Are you like? Hey, I've been working out. Like, are you gonna notice?
Does he do things I won't?
What were you saying earlier? You were saying about trying for that was before the show.
Before the show. Careful, buddy. That one's kind of blue.
All right. Anyway, patreon.com/thebestsoccershow for the Patreon. We will get you a bonus. There's always access to the Bestie Slack, which is super duper fun.
I didn't even know Nicholas was in the chat until right now. What's up, Nicholas?
Nicholas gave me a hookup on a contact today, so shout out to Nicholas.
I thought you were going to say a jersey. I was like, what the hell?
No. I don't know if Nicholas has ever directly hooked me up. He probably has.
I don't think he has. He may have directed other people to do it, but I don't know.
I'm sitting on a treasure trove of USL jerseys, so I mean, I got it right. You do need to show a little bit more skin. I don't know why you're not doing that.
Because this shirt actually has my work logo on it underneath. So
okay. Well, don't show that off. Not especially considering what you were talking about before the show. But I was gonna say, morning kick around. That's another thing I'm doing to cheat on Jared. But it's fun, too. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, live on YouTube, its own channel. Morning, and then Kick Around is all together. Kick Around is one word. Robert Kerr and I dive into stuff. It's mostly American-focused, but there's a little bit of some Premier League stuff and other things in there. So subscribe. I'd like to get to 1,000 over there. I can call that something of a success. So if you are a Best Soccer Show listener, and that looks vaguely dirty. That one, doesn't it? Like an extra X got in
X?
there. Yeah. I am still on Sirius XM. Yeah. All right.
The WNBC.
All right. I don't know how to end this show, so we're just going to say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye.
Farewell.
Get to the chopper!
It was there. Oh, here we go, saucing them up. Hit him. What?
We are at DEFCON 1.
DEFCON 1. WNBC. WNBC.
And get fucking stuck in the Luke. Who asked those questions? Zu viel respect for the Gegner. Zu viel respect for the Gegner.
Can I get a manager? Can I please get a manager?
What are we doing? Oh, it's incredible!
Duh and or hello.
Get to the chopper!
Jay Rodius.